They were chosen. They were blessed. They were destined to shape the course of history. And then they vanished. Hidden deep within the ancient scrolls of the Bible and the forgotten corners of Israel's past lies a mystery that has captivated historians, theologians, and seekers of truth for millennia: the fate of the 12 tribes of Israel. From the moment Jacob, also known as Israel, blessed his 12 sons, these tribes stood at the heart of God's covenant with mankind. They were the pillars of a divine plan, a nation forged in the fires of slavery and refined through rebellion, redemption, and revelation. For centuries, their stories of triumph and tragedy were told from one generation to the next. But suddenly, the narrative breaks. 10 of these tribes, once vibrant and powerful, disappeared from the pages of history without a trace. How could the very backbone of Israel, the foundation of the promised nation, become a shadow, a legend? What really happened to the 10 lost tribes? Are they truly gone? Or could they still exist hidden among the nations? Their identity obscured, waiting for the moment when prophecy brings them back into the light. And perhaps the most compelling question of all: what does the Bible actually say about their return in the last days? In this video, we will embark on an epic journey across time and continents. We'll uncover ancient secrets, explore bold theories, and examine sacred prophecies that could point to one of the most dramatic restorations in human history. So buckle up. The mystery is deeper than you think. The clues are there, buried in history, in Scripture, and even in our modern world. This is the story of the 12 tribes of Israel, their rise, their fall, and their foretold return. To understand the mystery of the lost tribes, we must begin at the very beginning with a promise made not to a nation, but to a man. His name was Abraham. Over 4,000 years ago, in the land of Mesopotamia, God called out to Abraham, commanding him to leave his homeland and travel to a land he did not yet know. In return, God made a covenant, one that would echo through all of human history. I will make you into a great nation, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Genesis 12:2-3. Abraham obeyed. Through his faith, the foundation of the Hebrew people was born. He had a son, Isaac, and to Isaac, the covenant was renewed. Then came Jacob. Isaac's son, later renamed Israel after wrestling with an angel. Jacob had 12 sons. Not by one woman, but by 4 his 2 wives, Leah and Rachel, and their 2 handmaids, Bilhah and Zilpah. These 12 sons would become the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel, each one bearing his father's blessing, and in some cases, his curse. Their names: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. But among them, one story stood apart: Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and taken to Egypt. Joseph's fate seemed sealed, but through divine providence, he rose to become second in command to Pharaoh, interpreting dreams and saving nations from famine. When drought swept across the land, it was Joseph's brothers, unaware of his survival, who came to Egypt begging for food. And in one of the Bible's most emotional reunions, Joseph revealed his identity and forgave them. The family was reconciled, and Jacob, now old and frail, brought his entire household to Egypt. There, in the land of Goshen, the Israelites multiplied and prospered under Joseph's protection. But that peace would not last. A new Pharaoh arose, one who did not know Joseph, nor cared for the blessings Israel had brought. Fearful of their growing numbers, he enslaved them. What began as a promise had become a prison. Still, God was faithful. From bondage, a deliverer emerged: Moses. Under his leadership and God's power, the Israelites were freed from Egypt in an event that would define their national identity, the Exodus. Through plagues, miracles, and the parting of the Red Sea, the Israelites escaped their oppressors. But it wasn't just a physical journey, it was spiritual. At Mount Sinai, God gave them his law. Here, The 12 tribes were more than just descendants of a patriarch. They were a nation, chosen and set apart. Each tribe had its place, its role. The Levites were consecrated as priests, set apart for temple service. Judah was foretold to carry the scepter of leadership out of which would eventually come King David, and later, the Messiah. Joseph, though one man was given a double portion, his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, were adopted by Jacob and became two separate tribes, effectively creating 13 tribal units, though only 12 were counted in most listings. As they journeyed toward the Promised Land, their tribal identities were reinforced, each with a banner, a territory, a destiny. Under Joshua, they finally entered Canaan, the land sworn to their ancestors. But peace was fleeting. For a brief moment in time, the 12 tribes stood united, a nation born from promise, forged in suffering, held together by divine law. But human hearts are fragile. After the days of Joshua, the Israelites entered a period of instability. There was no king, no central government, only judges, charismatic leaders raised by God to guide the tribes during times of crisis. But each tribe lived largely independent, and the unity that once bound them began to fray. As the people drifted into idolatry and rebellion, the call for a king grew louder. "Give us a king to rule over us," they cried, wanting to be like the other nations. And so God granted their request. The first monarch, King Saul, tried to unify the tribes, but his disobedience cost him the throne. He was succeeded by David, a man after God's own heart, who established Jerusalem as the political and spiritual capital of Israel. Under David and his son Solomon, the kingdom reached its golden age, wealthy, powerful, respected. But Solomon's reign came at a price. Though wise, he burdened the people with taxes and conscripted labor to build the temple and his palaces. His many foreign wives brought foreign gods, and the nation's spiritual integrity crumbled. When Solomon died, the kingdom could no longer hold together. The year was around 930 BC, and Israel would never be the same again. A nation torn in two, Solomon's son, Rehoboam, ascended the throne. But instead of easing the burdens of his people, he made them heavier. In response, 10 tribes in the north rebelled, rejecting the Davidic dynasty. They crowned their own king Jeroboam, a former official turned rival. Thus, Israel was split. The northern kingdom retained the name Israel and included 10 tribes. The southern kingdom, known as Judah, was made up of Judah, Benjamin, and many Levites who remained faithful to the temple in Jerusalem. The once unified 12 tribes were now two nations often hostile to each other. The northern kingdom set up alternative worship sites, golden calves in Bethel and Dan, leading their people further into idolatry. Prophet after prophet warned them, "Turn back, return to the Lord." But the warnings went unheeded. The vanishing, then came the storm. In the year 722 BC, the mighty empire of Assyria swept through the northern kingdom. Israel was conquered, its cities destroyed, its people scattered. The Assyrians had a brutal and effective strategy to port and displace. Entire populations were uprooted and forced into exile across the empire. Foreign groups were moved in to replace them. This wasn't just military conquest, it was cultural erasure. Over time, the 10 northern tribes, those of Reuben, Simeon, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Ephraim, and Manasseh, began to vanish from history. Their languages faded, their customs dissolved, their stories turned to myth. They became known as the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Narrator voiceover, but what does it mean to be lost? Did they die out completely? Or did they survive hidden, unnamed, assimilated into the nations around them? This is where the mystery deepens. The southern remnant survives, while the north disappeared. The southern kingdom of Judah endured for a while longer. Despite internal corruption and occasional revival, Judah too fell into spiritual decline. Prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel warned of coming judgment. But the people hardened their hearts. In 586 BC, the inevitable came. Babylon, under King Nebuchadnezzar, invaded. Jerusalem was sacked. The Temple of Solomon burned. The elite of Judah nobles, priests, artisans were taken into exile. But unlike the 10 northern tribes, the exiles from Judah kept their identity. They preserved their scriptures. They remembered Zion. They wept by the rivers of Babylon. After 70 years, many returned under the decree of Cyrus the Great of Persia. They rebuilt Jerusalem, and a second temple was established. But it was only Judah, Benjamin, and Levi who returned. The 10 tribes of the north never came back, lost. But not forgotten narrator voiceover. Who were these lost tribes? And more importantly, where did they go? Some believe they simply assimilated, absorbed into the cultures of Assyria, Persia, or beyond. Others claim they migrated, forming distant communities across Africa, India, and even Asia. And still others say they were preserved by divine will for a purpose yet to be fulfilled. Could they be out there still? Could descendants of the lost tribes walk among us today, unaware of the blood that flows through their veins? The Bible itself offers clues and prophecies. And those prophecies speak of something extraordinary, a time when the lost will be found and the scattered will be gathered. For over 2,700 years, the question has remained, what happened to the 10 lost tribes of Israel? When Assyria scattered them across its empire, their trail went cold. The Bible falls nearly silent. Secular history offers no concrete answers, but mystery thrives where silence dwells. Over the centuries, countless theories have emerged, some historical, some mythical, and some spiritual, all driven by the same relentless question. Could the lost tribes still be out there? Theory 1, dispersed and assimilated. The most widely accepted theory among scholars is also the simplest. The tribes disappeared through assimilation. According to this view, Assyria's policy of forced relocation designed to weaken conquered peoples was brutally effective. Families were separated, traditions were lost, cultural identity was slowly erased through intermarriage, language shifts, and the adoption of foreign gods. Over generations, these tribes ceased to exist as distinct groups. They became part of the vast empire, their names forgotten, their lineage blurred. But even in this theory, there's a haunting possibility. While the tribes may have vanished from history, they may not have vanished from existence. Their descendants unknowing, anonymous, could be living all over the world today, no longer Hebrews by name, but still heirs by blood. Theory 2, the African connection, Beta Israel. Another theory leads us south to the highlands of Ethiopia. There, a group known as Beta Israel, or the Ethiopian Jews, have long claimed descent from the tribe of Dan, one of the 10 tribes that vanished after the Assyrian conquest. Their traditions, dietary laws, and Sabbath observance resemble ancient Israelite customs, though their exact origins remain debated. Some legends trace them back to the time of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Others tie their roots to the Assyrian exile. In the 20th century, after genetic testing and diplomatic intervention, thousands of Beta Israel were airlifted to Israel in covert operations such as Operation Moses and Operation Solomon. To many, this was not just a political move, it was a prophetic sign. Theory 3, the Eastern Migration, India and Asia. Still others point east across deserts, mountains, and rivers. In northeastern India, near the borders of Myanmar and Bangladesh, live the B'nai Menashe, a community that claims descent from the tribe of Manasseh, one of Joseph's sons. Their oral traditions speak of a long migration from the Middle East, through Persia, China, and into India. Their practices include ritual purity, animal sacrifices, and festivals strikingly similar to those in the Old Testament. In recent decades, the Israeli government has acknowledged their claims, and hundreds have made Aliyah, the return to Israel. Other groups in Pashtun tribes of Afghanistan, Japanese legends, and even Native American oral histories have been linked rightly or wrongly to the lost tribes. Could it be coincidence, wishful thinking? Or could the blood of Israel truly have scattered to the ends of the earth, just as prophecy said it would? Prophecy hidden in plain sight narrator voiceover. The Bible does not forget the 10 tribes. Though they disappear from historical record, they remain very much alive in the prophetic narrative. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, speaks of 2 sticks, one representing Judah, the other Israel, being brought back together by God into one unified nation. They shall no longer be 2 nations, nor shall they ever be divided into 2 kingdoms again. Ezekiel 37:22. The prophet Isaiah foretells a time when God will stretch out his hand a second time to gather his people from Assyria, Egypt, Cush, Elam, and the islands of the sea. The message is clear. The lost will not remain lost forever. God has not forgotten his covenant. He knows every tribe, every name, every bloodline, modern movements, and messianic hopes. In the 20th and 21st centuries, movements have grown around the idea of regathering Israel not just as a nation, but as a spiritual people. The founding of the State of Israel in 1948 was seen by many as the beginning of that fulfillment. Jews from around the world, Europe, North Africa, Asia, the Americas began returning to their ancestral land. Organizations like the Jewish Agency and Nefesh B'Nefesh assist in the return, known in Hebrew as Aliyah. Among the returnees are groups who claim descent from the lost tribes, some welcomed, some disputed. Yet the trend is undeniable. More and more people from the most unexpected places are identifying with ancient Israel. Could this be the awakening of the lost tribes? And still, the question lingers. If prophecy is true, if God truly intends to restore all 12 tribes, then the story isn't over. Somewhere in the mountains, the deserts, or the cities of the world, the blood of Jacob may still be flowing, waiting, wandering, unaware of its sacred heritage. And if the Bible is right, that blood will one day be called home.